Hey, welcome back, guys. And I'm going to ask you something to start the show that is all the way 100. When you came home, or when you were preparing to come home, who walked with you? Who walked with you? And just as important, who didn't need to walk with you? Because reentry isn't just about housing, jobs, or paperwork. It's all about proximity, who you're close to, who has access to your time, your mind, your emotions. A lot of people don't relapse because they wanted to. A lot of people don't go back to prison or be a victim of recidivism because they plan to. They go back because they kept the same relationships, expected a different result. Now, today's episode is about relationships, ones returning citizens need to form, and the ones we absolutely need to let go of if we're serious about building something different. No judgment, no preaching, just truth. Because this is the conviction fiction. All right, welcome back. I'm your host, Juan Rivers, and today we're going to get into why relationships matter more than motivation. Okay, it's the start of a new year, 2026, because this is the part people don't really like to talk about, honestly. Most of the stuff we do on this podcast, people don't like to talk about. It's more about the, the wow factor, right? Clickbait. But we try to dig into the delicate and sometimes uncomfortable subjects that make us all move. And most of us, like we come home highly motivated. We make promises to ourselves, to our families, sometimes even to God. We say things like, "I'm done with that life," or "Hey, I'm not going back. I ain't never going back," or "This time is really going to be, it's going to be different." And I believe that motivation is real. It's most times is rooted in good intention. Here's the truth: I had to learn the hard way, and I've seen it play out over and over again with other returning citizens. And that motivation might get you out the gate, but relationships determine how far you will go. I'll say that again: motivation will get you out the gate, but those relationships that you form or the ones that you create, they're going to determine how far you go beyond the gate. Because all the way 100, because motivation is emotional, relationships are environmental. uh, you can wake up determined every morning, but if the people around you are still thinking the same way, still move the same way, they normalize chaos, treat like just surviving like, hey man, I made it through it like a success. Eventually that environment starts to wear you down. Reentry isn't just about avoiding crime. It's about learning how to live without constant pressure. And pressure doesn't just come from bills or re- parole requirements. It comes from conversations, from expectations that you set for yourself and people set for you. It comes from those people who have access to you. That's why I say this carefully but clearly, because I've been dealing with some pressures when it comes to um, healthy relationships. Not everyone who loves you is good for your reentry. And that doesn't mean they're bad people. It means they may only know how to relate to the version of you that existed when you were in survival mode. Okay. That's all that means. A lot of us were respected for who we were in streets. A lot of us were. We had, people that looked up to us. Some of us were needed because we were useful in unhealthy ways. We were that go-to person when things went left. But when you come home trying to be consistent, calm, disciplined, and accountable, that version of you can make people feel uncomfortable. And that's when the real quiet pressure starts to build. They don't always say, go back to your old ways. Sometimes it sounds like this. This how it come to you. Well, you acting different. Oh, you too good now. You used to be or have more fun. Or you just too serious. Not knowing that you just, just left behind some walls, right? That you were physically incarcerated. Those statements don't sound dangerous, but they are. And I'm gonna tell you why. The reason why those statements are dangerous because they slowly pull you back towards familiarity, right? And when you're familiar with something, it's kind of seductive, especially when life gets hard. Um, People don't talk about that when those subtle hints that this is how you used to deal with stuff. You can reason in your head to say like, yeah, and it was a lot easier. I was in my element. I could do that. Um, so when things get hard, that becomes one of those things that seduces you just because of those relationships and the way they talk to you. Another thing people don't talk about enough is this. Um, Reentry is like mentally exhausting. Man, I mean, you learning new routines, you learning new rules, you learning how this whole technology thing works. You got new expectations. You're learning how to manage emotions without becoming numb to emotion. Um, you're dealing with triggers you didn't even know you had, and certain sounds, tones, even authority figures, rejection. All those things hit deeper than you truly expect. And most of we don't even think about that shit. We don't even talk about it. We have all these podcasts, we have all this media out there that don't talk about all these subtle little things that goes on in the head of someone that is trying to re-enter society. Maybe it's too deep. Just maybe it's too deep. Now imagine just trying to manage all that while staying connected to people who dismiss your growth, who joke about your boundaries, who don't respect your need for structure. That's not support. That's sabotage, even if it's unintentional. They don't even know what they're doing. And here's the part that stings a little because, some people benefit from you staying the same. Some people actually benefit, corporations benefit from you staying the same. They know how to deal with the old you. They don't know how to engage with the heal version, the disciplined version, the self-aware version of you. So these people, we'll talk about the corporations in another episode. That's a whole nother thing. But these people, instead of adjusting, they actually try to pull you back. And that's why relationships matter more than motivation, guys. It definitely matters more because when the motivation fades, and it will, motivation will fade. You're going to face some challenging stuff and you're going to be like, "Ah, I'm not feeling it today." And guess what? The people around you either are going to remind you who you're becoming, or they're going to remind you who you used to be. And in those moments of stress, frustration, loneliness, anger, those emotions, the loudest voice will usually win. When you caught up in stress, frustration, when you feel like you by yourself, or you just mad at the world, the loudest voice is going to normally win. And that's why this episode in this podcast isn't about cutting people off. It's about being intentional. It's about asking yourself, who has access to my time? Who has access to my thoughts? Who do I listen to when I'm tired and frustrated? Right? Um, we're going to probably have another spirituality episode in the beginning of this year because freedom isn't just physical. It's relational. It's spiritual. So if your relationships don't support stability, growth, and accountability, then no amount of motivation you got that will that no matter how many uh self-help books you read, no matter how many little affirmations you give, they ain't gonna keep you long term. It's just not. That's where the relationships come in. Now let's talk about the relationships you need to have, right? These are the ones that you should focus on and form from the beginning. We talked about why they matter so much, but let's get into something like the help, right? Because the question isn't just who should I avoid, it's also about who do I need to intentionally bring into my life? Who do I need around me? And this part matters because healthy relationships don't usually happen by accident, especially after incarceration. You choose them, right? You got to have mentors and credible guides. Every returning citizen, everyone I see on this show, everyone I talk to, it's important that you have at least one person who has already walked the road and made it. Not somebody who talks in theory, not somebody who reads about reentry in a book, somebody who's lived it. A credible mentor understands that there's going to be frustration when starting over, that there's going to be temptation to cut corners, the loneliness that comes with when you outgrow old services. I ain't gonna lie, I was at a house game recently, man. This is a personal story because I try to mix those personal stories into what my mission and what my intention for this podcast to do. It kind of makes it more real, right? I was at a house game, man. I don't know if you ever been to any sports arena. Like they jack the prices up on everything. Everything is super high. You know, um, you might buy, I don't know, chicken tender basket. It might be $20. Don't drink. Oh Lord, don't go down there drinking because the price of say a beer, 20-ounce beer, 24. How what does beer come in? I don't drink that much no more, but the beer, like a 20-ounce beer, is like maybe $18 a can, right? And I'm just gonna talk about how I tried to cut corners. I was like, I had my kids down there. You know, we paid the general admission because I got like had like 5 people with me. You know, so we get general admission, standing room only. We just in the building. We just got to walk around and find a little cut to watch the game. But and anyway, they got hungry, so I'm like, we're gonna go get something to eat. I'm thinking it's gonna be family bucket or something that we gonna be able to eat. Man, I had a temptation to cut a corner. I wanted to talk to one of the the, the servers and say, hey, look, I got 5 people. I'm gonna put $20 cash in your pocket to get these some these folks something to eat. You know, that was a temptation to cut a corner. You know, I'm know I'm at the game. I know I got to pay for this, but I'm like, hmm, I think it'd be a little feasible for me to make this guy. He might even get fired. If he get caught, he might get fired. Right? They might even try to keep me out of the game, ban me from the arena or something. But it was a temptation to cut a corner, and that's what I just want to talk about. Like, it's so much stuff that goes on that can actually revert you back to your old ways, or not doing things the right way. Hey, another one, the loneliness that comes when you outgrow old circles. You don't even got nobody to hang around no more. So yeah, a mentor doesn't just hype you up when you're wrong, and that's what I try to do on this podcast. I'm a mentor, right? Because I'm making it, and I struggle, and I have mentors around me. Um, so I actually become a mentee. And what we don't want to do is rescue you when things get uncomfortable. I'm going to try to tell you the truth, even when you don't want to hear it. Here's the key difference between a lot of podcasts and my podcast. Okay, a lot of podcasts enable you. Now, this podcast is going to basically be invested in your future. Other podcasts, not saying they bad, but they pretty much invested in your comfortable. They're going to show you highlight reels of people get beat up and stabbed in prison, which is all fine, but it's terrible. It's actually terrible that I would try to profit off somebody getting stabbed. Like, hey, don't go to prison because this will happen. Man, look, um, sometimes the best thing that someone can say is just slow down, or that decision isn't aligned with where you say you want to go, right? Now I get it when you want to show them where to go or where they could end up. But for the most part, that kind of relationship saves people from themselves, right? I think that's it. I cannot argue that. Here's my notion on saving people. I would not be where I am. Many of us would not be where we are if we did not go through the fire. Now, we could talk about it and show them, but at the end of the day, you know, God got like the ultimate control. They're gonna go, they're gonna go, right? You're also gonna need supportive family with boundaries. Let me add that, with boundaries. Because this one is complicated because family history, it runs so deep. Family can be your strongest support, or check this out. Family can be your biggest trigger. Healthy family relationships don't reentry look like, respecting boundaries, not constantly bringing up your past all the time, throwing it up in your face. Oh, you was locked up 30 years, blah, blah, blah. Um, Allowing you to grow without guilt, allowing you to make mistakes. But here's the hard truth. Just because someone is family, I'm talking to you. Just because someone is family doesn't mean they're entitled to unlimited access to you. They'll talk about stuff you got going on in your house that you ain't even share with them. Some family members only know how to relate to you through old roles. You're the problem. You're the disappointment, right? I'm the fixer. You're the one who always messes up. So when you change or when life is different from you, it forces them to change too. And let's be honest, not everyone is ready to change. Everybody ain't ready to change because they've been like holding it down. And that doesn't mean you just stop loving them, but it means you love them wisely. Your boundaries aren't disrespect, they're protection. Boundaries are not disrespect. If I say I don't need you around me because you're going to trigger me into thinking that I'm not worthy, or you're attacking my self esteem because you're reminding me that I went to prison, or you're reminding me of a crime that I committed, or you're reminding me of how awful I was. Just because I don't want you around me saying it all the time doesn't mean I don't respect you. That don't mean that I don't respect you and I don't love you. That just means I'm protecting myself because, like we were talking about at the top of the show, sometimes that stuff can replay and you like, you know what? When I'm having a bad day, I'm like, you know what? Maybe they right. Maybe they're right. I am the one that always messes up. So if I keep that away from around me, I'm protecting myself. Right. Now you also need employment and skill. We probably have a whole show on family relationships at some point because that's a very sensitive subject, right? Even when it comes into employment, probably another episode where work is where confidence is rebuilt. Job isn't just about money; it's about rhythm, routine, responsibility, and then you getting paid for it. Returning citizens thrive when they connect with employers who are willing to train, not just judge, but make them better. Supervisors who correct instead of condemn. Have coworkers around you who hold standards without trying to humiliate you. You don't need an employee who ignores your mistakes. You need someone who helps you to learn from them. And those skill building relationships matter. These people shift your identity from formerly incarcerated to capable professional. Now that shift changes how you walk in the rooms, man. You don't know. It's a different type of confidence when you believe that you are supposed to be there. Now, when it comes to peer and support groups, that One of the things before I get into peer and support, recovery communities, and all that good stuff, isolation is one of the most dangerous things in reading. When you don't have people to talk to, you start talking to your thoughts. And not all thoughts deserve like a microphone. They don't need to hear you. And that's what peer support should look like. The reentry groups, recovery circles, men's and women's accountability groups or chat groups, faith-based communities. These spaces matter because they normalize honesty. They give you permission to say, "Hey, man, look, I'm struggling, man. I'm fucked up today. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling tempted. I'm just overwhelmed." And instead of judgment, you hear those people saying, "Hey, you know what? Me too, man. I've been there, man. Let's just take some time to figure it out." Nobody will ever win reentry alone. Community doesn't eliminate struggle, but it does significantly shorten the struggle, right? And I always recommend getting professional and therapeutic support. I don't see nothing wrong with going to like personal therapy. Now, this one deserves more respect than it gets. A lot of returning citizens are still carrying like the childhood trauma, the prison survival habits, emotional shutdowns, all that unresolved grief and anger. You don't just get over that by staying busy. Therapy, counseling, case management, those aren't signs of weakness. They're tools for you. Go get them, use them. Think about this. You don't run a car for years without checking up under the hood. Why would you do that with your own mind? Why would you do that with your own mental health? Right? Professional support helps you to identify those triggers, start to regulate the emotions that you maybe you need to unlearn some survival responses, build some healthy coping strategies. And the more emotionally stable you become, the better your decisions get. Right? You can check some of this out over on Amazon. Go check out Turning Forward, The Work Beyond Fear. It's a helpful workbook that has some practical steps and strategies that you can use to get your mental health corrected, to get your life corrected, especially if you're just coming into reentry or even if you've been out. You might need a general reminder of what you need to be focused on. Go check it out. It's available now on Amazon. Turning Forward, The Work Beyond Fear. Um, what about some of the positive community connections that you have? Do you have any? Do you underestimate everyday relationships like coaches or the volunteers that help you, neighbors, community leaders that are in your community, church leaders, mosque representatives, people who see you as a person, not as a record? Do you overlook them? Do you underestimate them? Because those connections can rebuild your sense of belonging. They are there to remind you that you're not defined by your origin, and belonging reduces the need to return back to those old environments or those old ways of thinking. Bottom line is basically this, man. Returning citizens don't need perfect people around them. They need to have intentional relationships. People who support growth, people who respect boundaries, people who value accountability. Those relationships just don't help you stay out of trouble. They help you build a life worth protecting. Right? Now, there are some relationships. I know y'all was waiting on this. You definitely was waiting on this. There are some relationships that you should not form. Right? These are relationships you should not get into at all. For them at all costs. And it's normal when things get quiet. And I say that because it's one thing to talk about who we need, and another thing to talk about who we need to distance ourselves from. And let me be clear before we go any further, this is about judging people. This isn't about being bougie or acting superior. This is about survival and sustainability. That's what this is about. When we think about that, there are just some relationships that will slow your progress. They actively pull you backwards, even when nobody means harm. First up, the most obvious one, former criminal associates. It's obvious, but it's the most common one. People say things like, "Well, they ain't doing that no more. They ain't even into that. We just talk. We just kicking it. They steal my people." And I get it. History runs deep. But here's the truth: old environments activate old thinking. This is how it normally go, right? You don't have to commit a crime to be mentally pulled back into the mindset that made crime feel normal. I'm gonna say that again. You don't have to commit nothing. You don't have to go out there and rob nothing or scam nobody. You don't have to commit a crime to be mentally pulled back into the mindset that made it feel like it was okay to do anyway. Conversations, they turn into jokes about the past, and stories turn into like, oh, those are the good old days. Man, we was really tough. And that feeling turns into justification. And before you know it, you're back mentally, even if you're not physically. You don't heal in the same spaces where you learn to survive. The second group, and this one goes with the family, like because family, they are sometimes enablers, and they don't look dangerous. They sound supportive. They sound understanding. They sound loyal. They say things like, "You're doing better than most people. Really not that serious. I'm gonna help you. You deserve a break. You deserve a break. You're being too hard on yourself." But here's the problem: growth requires accountability, and enablers remove friction when friction is actually a necessary thing. You need a little bit of friction. They don't challenge bad decisions. They don't question risky behavior. They actually support it. I can go back to, I talk about like I've been dealing with recovery, like with family members, and I'm trying to work my own. Right? It was a story where um, one of my folks had ended up in like a homeless shelter or whatnot, and another family member, instead of pushing, challenging, they sent like DoorDash. The family member, they were homeless. They're like, I need something to eat. And so instead of like taking them in and saying, hey, look, well, we're gonna get you on the right path, that old Jesus thing. We teach you how to fish, ain't gonna just give you no fish. They actually just DoorDash food to the homeless shelter. Now, in hindsight, I was looking back, I was like, you homeless and you sitting in a homeless shelter with hundreds of other people, but you eating wings from American Deli like you hot shit. But you in the same plate these folks is. And it was only because somebody said, well, you better than most people, even though you're homeless. Here, you got some people that gonna see you some DoorDash. They don't challenge bad. They didn't never challenge the bad decision to be in a homeless shelter in the first place. Losing a job or the risky behaviors, maybe drug use. They don't challenge that. They help you justify shortcuts. These shortcuts are expensive in reunion. The people who care about you the most won't always agree with you. They won't always agree with you. They'll tell you the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Now, there are some exploitative relationships out there, and they don't talk about this a lot either. Some people, man, some like shows I've listened to, they see returning citizens as uh, free labor, inspirational content. They look at funding opportunities, all this stuff. I mean, a success story to showcase. Be careful of people who profit from your story, but destiny or growth. Like every story that I have, I try to send it back to those people that are on the show. I invite them back. You know, Even I asked for like, can we publish this? Can we talk about this? You know, maybe use it to help support you. You want to control access, or they want to control access to resources or keep you dependent on them. If someone benefits from you staying stuck, that's not support, that's control. Real support empowers, it doesn't gatekeep. And though, before we get into romantic relationships that rush here, I want to talk about like because I've went out and had people on the show. When we first started out, I was like, "Hey, look, this is what we're doing. We want to highlight sex stories, blah blah blah. Maybe it helps somebody." People were weird, but in the process, that also helped them help others because it gave them the confidence to know that, hey, he can do it, I can do it, right? Or he's been doing, he's seen struggle, right? And that has been one of the more motivating factors for me when it comes to like books and stuff because I'm learning too. Um, One of the things I had to learn, even when, outside of just dealing with the podcast, you know, relationships that are on the romantic side, those relationships that rush healing. Now, this part is kind of sensitive because coming home is emotionally intense. You're vulnerable. You want to feel normal, but love doesn't replace self worth. You haven't stabilized emotionally, mentally, financially. Jumping into a relationship can complicate everything. It can just complicate everything, especially if someone tries to save you, someone controls your movement, someone who replaces accountability with affection. That's not love, man. That's end up being dependency. Now, healthy relationships should add to your life, not distract from you becoming whole. Um, Now, there are some other relationships that you should avoid, and those are negative peer group, negative or that victim mentality. Those circles out there that are just all around victim mentality. Every community has them. Every community groups where nothing is never their fault. The system is always this. When you talking about growth, it's like, oh, the only reason they're growing because of this. All accountability is avoided. And listen, yes, the system is flawed. Barriers are real. Discrimination does exist, but staying stuck in constant complaint without action is extremely dangerous because that energy transfers. If everyone around you believes progress is impossible, eventually you will stop trying, right? And then it becomes a transaction. You got to start looking out for those. I'll help you if you do this relationship, right? I help you if you, you know, look, do what I say. That conditional support, hidden expectation, unspoken debts. Stability requires trust, not constant bargaining. You shouldn't feel like your growth comes with strings attached. Your growth is your growth. And the hard truth is, some relationships expire when you grow. That doesn't make them bad relationships. It just means your life has changed. And distance always doesn't just equate to rejection. Just because I'm not around you, don't mean I'm rejecting you. Sometimes it just basically means I'm preserving myself. If letting go of certain people feels lonely at first, that's normal. Loneliness is temporary. Regression, going back to old thoughts and ideas of getting caught up in those criminal behavior tactics that we talk about in the books, that's costly. So I can get over this lonely as long as I can get over being lonely as long as I don't regress and go back into thinking that I'm the victim. Because at the end of the day, there's the one question that changes everything when it comes to relationships. We talked about the ones you should have, We talked about the ones that are actually costly. But here's the question that changes everything. Because if you've been listening up to this point, you probably felt the mix of emotions, like some clarity, some validation, maybe even some discomfort. But that's okay. That's okay. That's what this podcast is about. Because if you're not growing, then you're probably comfortable. Because growth usually starts with discomfort. At the center of everything we've talked about in this episode is one simple question. It's not an easy one, but a very necessary one. That question is does this relationship, whatever relationship you're in, whether it's with your family, whether it's with your significant other, whether it's with your home, or somebody at work, does this relationship support who I'm becoming, or does it reinforce who I used to be? Think about that question. Does this relationship support who I'm becoming, or does it reinforce who I used to be? That question changes everything because it forces honesty on you. It shifts the focus away from history, who you was, your loyalty to a person, obligation, guilt, um, and basically the question places squarely on direction. What direction are you trying to? What direction does this relationship have me going? Is it going in the direction where I want to be, or does it basically reinforce who I used to be? Reentry isn't about proving anything to anyone. It's about alignment. You're not trying to convince people that you've changed. You're trying to build a life that reflects that change, whether people acknowledge it or not, that is there. Here's the part that people struggle with. Some relationships don't end with a fight. They end with a realization. You start noticing, hey, certain conversations just drain me. If I'm listening to like people sometimes just talking that shit just drain me mentally. Certain people don't care about boundaries, right? They don't care about healthy boundaries. Those environments sometimes make me anxious or reactive. Good for my mental health. Nothing dramatic happens, but something inside of me shifts. And when you realize that being around certain people requires you to shrink, to explain yourself, to defend your growth, to tolerate things you've outgrown, that's when you have to make a decision. Because staying connected to relationships that don't align with who you're becoming doesn't just slow you down, it confuses you. It creates an internal conflict. And one part of you might want discipline, structure, and peace. And then that other part kind of makes you go back to what's familiar. That internal conflict is exhausting, guys. And that's why this podcast matters. That's why this questions matters. This question matters. Not do they love me, or do we go way back, or would they be hurt if I change? But so like, do they respect my growth? Do they respect my boundaries? Do they support them? Do I feel stronger or weaker after spending time with them? Right? Do I feel like I accomplished something? I got closer to my goal because of being around this person. Your nervous system is the one that's going to keep score. Every interaction leaves you tense, guarded, or second guessing yourself. That's information that you need to start recognizing. Every interaction in a relationship leaves you tense, leaves you guarded, or starts second guessing, like, man, that don't even sound right. Then that's information to tell you that you're in the wrong spot. And here's something I wish more returning citizens heard early, right? You are allowed to change without explaining yourself to everyone. You can change without, hey, this is why I'm changing. Growth doesn't require permission. Boundaries don't need a defense. Just because, like I said earlier, isn't like rejection. It's basically self-preservation. So here's another question I'm gonna throw at you. And And then I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up because I got a little exercise I want to do. Thank you guys for supporting. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. But another question: does this can help you? First, I gotta set the stage for this question because that question, like, does this person support my growth, or does this person reinforce like old habits? This question helps you recognize that not every relationship needs to be permanent. Some people are meant to walk with you for a season. Some people help you survive. Others help you grow. Both matter, but they're not interchangeable. Trying to bring survival relationships into your growth season will create an unhealthy friction. It's like trying to run a new program on outdated software. Something is going to crash. And here's the most important part: choosing better relationships doesn't mean you'll never feel lonely. It means you're choosing long term stability over short term comfort. Okay. Every time you choose a relationship that supports your healing, your accountability, and your future, you reinforce your freedom. Not just freedom from incarceration, but freedom from patterns, chaos, needing validation from people who don't understand your journey. Because people ain't gonna understand your journey. People, I mean, we are a certain group. Not saying that we different, but we have to support each other. And for the tools that we are learning, it's always best to share or keep what we have by giving it away. I always say that I can't keep my peace and my sanity unless I give it away. Right now, I had a bonus segment that I wanted to share with you guys today. Um, it's basically a checklist. So I'm just gonna go through this checklist and then we're gonna wrap it up. All right. So if I want to slow it down first and make it very practical for you guys. Everything we talked about today, relationships, boundaries, proximity, alignment, none of that matters if it stays theoretical, just in your head. Reentry isn't lived in ideas, it's lived in daily decisions. So I want to walk you through something I call the reentry relationship checklist that I just made up. Give it a clap, y'all. All right. So if you're listening right now, I encourage you when it's safe and possible, pause this episode later, write this down, or revisit it. Also, put it as the PDF in the social media. It's not about judging people in your life, it's about protecting your progress. So let's start with a simple self check. Ready? Are you guys ready? Ready? Let's go. That was that fight. That was really bad. Get the soundboard, got to do a little bit better. But think about this. Think about those people who currently have access to you. People that have access to your time, energy, your emotion, right? Ask yourself, do I feel respected in this relationship? Do they support who I'm becoming, not just who I used to be? Can you set boundaries without being guilted or pressured? Do you feel clearer and stronger after spending time with them, or like I've found in some relationships, I felt drained and confused? And here's the key part: I want you to be honest. If a relationship doesn't check at least a few of those boxes, that doesn't mean that person is bad. It means the relationship might need boundaries, distance, or redefinition. Now, we can talk about the relationships you should be building because reentry works best when you're not relying on one person for everything. You need a mix. You need a mentor, that credible guy, someone who lived this and made it through. You need supportive family members, not Not the ones that don't respect boundaries, but you need those ones who do respect your boundaries and try to help with the emotional healing associated with recovery. You're going to need employment or skill building relationships, people who help you grow professionally in whatever you're trying to do, career wise, peer support group where honesty is normal. You can say, I'm having a bad day, and people can hold you accountable for decisions that you make. And I always recommend professional support. Those are the counselors, therapists, case managers who help you process what you're carrying. You don't need all of them, not all of them at once, but you do need more than one. You do need more than one. Um, Keep it 100 about the relationships that can increase risk. Former criminal associates, even if they say they're done, or those who normalize shortcuts or risky behavior, enablers who excuse poor decisions. All these people are dragging you down. And I want you guys to listen, pay attention, become better, more successful in your growth potential. A lot of people that gave up on us. A lot of people gave up on us, but it's very important for us to show that, hey, look, people make mistakes. This is what second chances are about. There are people that are not come in contact with over the years, over the past few decades, that deserve a second chance, but they ain't getting one. They're not getting one because their past is still holding them. Now, if saying those things creates manipulation, anger, or guilt, that's not love, man. That's control. I want you to carry that one question with you, though, especially on those hard days. Does that relationship support your freedom or pull you back into what you're familiar with? Physical freedom only. I'm talking about that mental, emotional, and spiritual freedom. Reentry success isn't just about staying out of trouble, it's about staying alive. And alignment starts with who you allow to be close to you. So go ahead and pause that part, go back and listen to it because it's all about awareness, and awareness gives you options. Okay. Now, I want to go ahead and close this episode of the Conviction Fiction. I want to leave you with one simple reminder, and that reminder is reentry isn't about avoiding mistakes, it's about choosing alignment. Let me say that again. Reentry isn't about avoiding mistakes, it's about choosing alignment. Who you allow close to you matters. Who speaks into your decision matters. Who has access to your time and energy, all of that matters. You don't need perfect relationships, you need intentional ones. If someone from today's conversation made you pause, or if something from today's conversation made you pause, we always love those people. Send them over, have them take a listen. But if something today made you feel uncomfortable or made you pause to reflect, that's cool. That's not a bad thing. That's awareness. And awareness gives you options, like I said. So you're allowed to grow. You're allowed to set boundaries. You're allowed to protect the life you're building, even if others don't quite understand it yet. This is the conviction fiction where we don't ignore the past, but we don't live in it either. We build forward with clarity, with accountability. And with the right people around us, we can pretty much change the narrative. See you guys next week.